Welcome back to my Dallas Cowboys blog. It's January 21st, 2015, about half a month before the Super Bowl. It's crazy that if you have a bye week in football, you will have half a month before you play again. I've been intrigued by that just very recently, seeing how the NFL plays 16 games, one game every weekend, just about. And then you get to the playoffs and you maybe have one or two games, 3 games, 4 victories if you're going to win the Super Bowl. It parallels like a lot of very ancient holidays that were based around winter and the harvest and all the harvesting that would often happen in the summer. And then there was plenty of food in the fall. And so then there were regular celebrations coming together, preparing for winter. If you know anything about Alaska, you maybe know that people really spend a lot of energy trying to find who they're going to hook up with for the winter. And I think ancient people did that too, and they would have these weekly festivals. And I think it's very interesting that football kind of parallels that. I can't help but wonder if 19th, turn of the century, 19th to the 20th century for the United States, if colleges used football weekends as a massive social networking opportunity. Have a bunch of young people get together. It's obvious that they did. I went to Texas A&M. They used to bus women from Texas Women's University to Texas A&M every weekend for football games. So obviously, it is paralleling these very ancient weekly holidays. Anyway, so let's get to the Dallas Cowboys. We're going to check their pantry on defense. There's an Bill Parcells metaphor about, buying the groceries so you can be the cook. So what are the Cowboys cooking on defense? What's cooking in the Cowboys defensive kitchen? When subtracting the list of free agents from the season-ending depth chart, the Cowboys are left with the makings of a decent defense despite missing familiar names. 2 rookies and a third-year player claimed legitimate shots heading into 2015. There are 21 players listed here, and NFL teams do not carry many more defenders than that. In many instances, starting over with these players having the inside edge to start and finding younger players who can compete to replace them makes sense for a defense rated in the middle of the NFL. Dallas had the second cheapest defense in the NFL in 2014. They are poised to go cheaper in 2015. So if they choose to spend money on the unit against expectations, they will be buffering a unit low on proven talent. Strong side defensive end, Kenneth Boatwright, historically the lower price defensive end. Teams lately are finding mismatch advantages by having dominant right defensive ends. This player's most important role is setting the edge in the run game, and franchises often go cheap here with a run clogger and not a pass rusher. With only Boatwright at this position, this is as cheap as a roster spot can be right now. Dallas could maintain this status quo, expecting to draft players who can replace George Selvey and Anthony Spencer. However, neither of those veterans should cost Dallas much if the Cowboys chose to re-sign them. At one tech, we have Terrell McClain and Josh Brent. The one tech is the run-stuffing defensive tackle, often a low-budget player. Josh Brent, big and tough to move, is the traditional player, while McClain exhibits speed unusual for the position. McClain was a disruptive force when healthy. And we're talking about Terrell McClain here, the defensive lineman. 3 tech, we have Tyrone Crawford and Ken Bishop. Tyrone Crawford claimed the 3 tech position with his disruptive play in 2014. Henry Melton flashed on plays but finished the season on IR. If Dallas is keeping with a theme of developing young players behind their starters, then Dallas will likely stick with Ken Bishop and current practice squad player Devon Coleman. At weak side defensive end, Dallas currently has Jeremy Mincey and DeMarcus Lawrence. Jeremy Mincey is a great rotational player, and DeMarcus Lawrence has shown flashes of pass rushing brilliance. Mincey was the defensive MVP of 2014 in a column I wrote. The Cowboys currently list 3 players total at defensive end, and often the 3rd and 4th player is also valuable on special teams. Kenneth Boatwright is poised for a lot more work on kick returns if this roster holds up. Weak side linebacker, Kyle Wilber, Keith Smith. Keith Smith and Kyle Wilber are poised to offer depth here with the return of Sean Lee. Kyle Wilber still searches for a role. He's not unique in that, and his position flexibility has helped the Cowboys. But if he can't play his way into a defined starting role in 2015, he'll likely be gone in 2016. This position would join strong side linebacker with a storm of question marks, except Sean Lee is coming back. middle linebacker Anthony Hitchens. There are other linebackers in Dallas's orbit banding about the periphery of this position. Maybe you've heard of Rolando McClain and Sean Lee. Despite those names, if Dallas went forward with Anthony Hitchens and sought another young player to be his understudy, they would not be amiss. At strong side linebacker, Cameron Lawrence and Dakota Watson. If Dallas loses Bruce Carter, Justin Durant, and Rolando McClain in the same offseason, they will head towards the draft with little played Cameron Lawrence and Dakota Watson covering tight ends on first and second down. Of all the defensive positions, this one lacks a player who has established starting credibility. Dallas needs a third starting linebacker. Left cornerback, Brandon Carr. Brandon Carr is a good starter, but can't be considered worth his impact on the salary cap. However, he was seen as good, but with limits when he was signed. The scarcity of the market drove his contract, and that may still be true in 2015. Starting cornerbacks are hard to find. If Dallas cuts Brandon Carr, they are entrusting the mercurial Morris Claiborne to seize the position. Sterling Moore was the weak link Aaron Rodgers targeted in the playoff loss. He has to be pushed further down the roster, even if he returns. Strong safety, J.J. Wilcox, Jeff Heath. Safety is a position where Dallas is most likely to maintain the status quo. The Cowboys could blow the lid off a mountain and draft a superstar safety high, or the sun could go Nova first. The Cowboys will roll with Barry Church and the three safeties still in their first contract. Free safety, Barry Church, Jakar Hamilton. Barry Church plays mistake-free, and Jakar Hamilton has great athletic traits. Hamilton has struggled to see the field for the last several years of football. It would take an unexpected draft to disrupt these four safeties. Jeff Heath, Jakar Hamilton, J.J. Wilcox, and Barry Church all played in the SEC and were all conference players. Just kidding. Dallas has sought a home run digging through small school safeties for a Darren Woodson that doesn't exist. They have found good players. They have four players from the smallest schools in college football. Maybe one of Wilcox, Hamilton, or Heath hulks out in year 3 of their NFL weight room experience. Otherwise, only an unexpected draft pick will shake up this position. Right cornerback Orlando Scandrick, Tyler Patman. Orlando Scandrick is a dependable veteran with an agreeable contract. Tyler Patman is a developing cornerback with solid traits that fits the Cowboys scheme. Accepting an unexpected draft pick or an unanticipated competition between Claiborne and Scandrick, this spot will remain the same. Welcome back, Sean Lee, Morris Claiborne. Dallas has a big gap to overcome the NFL on defense. They are in the middle now, and they will need an infusion of talent to get better. Some of that talent may come from injured players returning. They may not be the great athletes they once were, but they will still help Dallas. Had Dallas not promoted Kenneth Boatwright in the playoffs, they would have no defensive ends actually on the roster at right defensive end position. Now lacking George Selvey and Anthony Spencer, they will need to find a way to generate a pass rush while stuffing the run from the right. While they are at it, they might still consider bolstering the pass rush from the left. Mincy is 31 and DeMarcus Lawrence only had 2 sacks on the year. But recently, Dallas has shown faith in their own process, and that may still translate to projecting Lawrence as a future defensive end. If he pans out, Dallas will have the most difficult defensive line position locked up. Because of the rise of Tyrone Crawford as a 3-tech, Dallas has tools to work with along the front four. With Crawford and Lawrence as the left side of the future, the right side and their backups can be made out of much lower budget players. The linebackers have a need for a starting caliber strong side player. Improvement from the cornerback unit will depend on Morris Claiborne. The safety position is clogged with too many players in the same contract phase. Unexpected bloodletting at safety will be aimed at acquiring fresh faces. Dallas has a new defensive identity after rebounding from last in the league. Lawrence and Crawford are their new pass rush. Anthony Hitchens is the established vet. The Cowboys are well poised to draft into the organization on defense, replacing players who aren't at the top of the roster. And I'm Nick Welp on Twitter, and Elstonian Aggie in the comments. I wanted to address one comment that I thought was pretty interesting. As JR Cowboy 49 says, the roster laid out by Nicholas is pretty thin. No defined leader and one injury away from doomsday. He's totally right. This roster is made out of all the players that are actually on the roster who are not free agents. These guys are under contract. And it's true. It's barren. There's only 21 players. It's actually, there's 11 starters. That means there's only 10 backups. So you can tell that we're at least missing a second string player somewhere. This is barely enough players to field an NFL defense is what I'm saying. So, of course, it's really thin. And all the players that are older are out of their contract now. So that leaves a lot of young players, unproven players. So no wonder it's not It's not talented, or it doesn't have established talent that you're like, wow, can't wait to see them. But it does have a ton of youth. And so with that comes potential. I am hoping that the Cowboys sign, Justin Durant, also Rolando McClain, Bruce Carter, all those linebackers. By the end of the season, I thought they were all very good. And I would really love to have them all back. I don't know if that's going to be financially feasible, but also sticking with the idea that maybe going young gives you a better opportunity to find even better players. I wouldn't be too shocked to see the Cowboys go young and not re-sign their linebackers at all. I want to get to another comment. Do you think Dallas will be players in free agency to shore up some of these areas? Asked RLB. I had heard Jerry Jones recently said that he will be active in free agency. I think that definitely includes his own players, but I think that also means a spat of players that are elsewhere in the league. I don't think he'll sign anyone huge. Like, I don't see the defensive tackle Sue coming to Dallas. But I do think the Cowboys will sign a bunch of different players. So look for players that are like Jeremy Mincey level, established, professional, competent players that won't cost a whole bank. All right, so that's been my Cowboys blog. I will talk to you later.